Good evening or good morning or wherever you are, whenever you are watching this, just take the gratitude that I have for you. Thank you very much for being here. I'm really excited for today because today I'm planning to start off a new journey. As you might hear, Flutter team has announced a new conference for themselves that is going to be held in Kenya. It is called Flutter Forward. Let's check this out. So Flutter Forward is an event that is going to happen in 17 days. It's going to be in Kenya. They will have a Q&A session. If you're there, you can attend in person. And as long as you follow along the Flutter Forward hashtag, you will be able to actually be part of everything that's going on. It's quite exciting because there haven't been an in-person event for a long, long time, at least officially. And online events are great. These are great opportunities to bring each other closer. But an in-person event is actually going to change a lot of things. You can actually meet people and basically get the information in the first place, in the first hand, from the people that are working on the project. That's going to be really interesting and really cool. And since they started off this new thing called 17 Days of Flutter, I also decided to do something new, something different. And I decided to do or try to do the start of content for 17 days in a row. I want to start off with a live stream. Live streams will be happening for live coding and answering your questions if you have any. If you do not have any, you can always send it to me later on with my Twitter address. And what we're going to do today is, let me go back to the screen. We are going to actually go through a tutorial that I created earlier on. It was for the new version of the libraries that we have as AWS Amplify. For the people who doesn't know me, I'm Salih. I am a senior developer advocate at AWS Amplify. And what I'm focusing on is like mainly Flutter and mobile technologies. And for a couple of months, our team at AWS Amplify, for the Flutter part, they have been rewriting our libraries with Dart again. This means all of the dependencies that we have are decoupled, and we are able to give support for not just only mobile, but also for web and desktop, which is pretty cool. So what we're going to do today is, let me check one thing. I would like to show myself properly if I can. Yes. I want to do this so you can see me while I code as well. Perfect. All right. So what we are going to do today is we are going to follow along the tutorial that I created. This has been out for a long, long time. And I will share the link with the chat as well for the people who are here. And at the end, when you finish the project, you will be able to create a shopping list that you can add contents like a couple of items, and you will be able to persist them globally. So it's not just going to be local, but it's also going to be on the remote. And what I'm going to do next is, after doing this, we will go and put some more features into this. So it will look nicer, and in the same time, it will actually have more features as well. All right. So you can see how it looks like in different platforms right now. This is also, again, like as part of the content that I created earlier on. You can see that some upload operations are happening, as well as seeing the data as well. So if you're ready, let's get started. By the way, if you have any questions about anything, just shoot it in the chat and I will answer it along the way. This will be an opportunity for us to get closer, get questions, your questions answered, and just do my best to be with you around here. All right. So requirements are, you need to have Flutter SDK version 3.0, which is what we have right now. If I do Flutter Doctor, you can see that I have the version of Flutter 3.3.10, which is going for it. We need to have an AWS account with AWS CLI set up. I'm not going to show you this in this video. If you want to learn about it, there's a documentation. But if you really want to know a video about how you can create an AWS account and AWS CLI setup, please let me know over like direct messages, so maybe I can create a content for it. Okay, so we have the version, everything's great. And lastly, we will clone the project. The project that I created is this one. It is the Amplify shopping cart application. It supports all the platforms like you see. What it has, which is really cool, is it has many to-dos that you can follow along, like initialize and amplify it and authentication or GraphQL APIs. So at the end, you can follow the steps to create the application. And all the features and whatever they need to have is there. You might be asking, why am I doing this? The reason that I'm doing that is there are two folks who asked for it, which I really appreciate for their issues. One of them is like branch asked for a branch with a working solution. This is what we are going to create. Then I will create a properly architected way of doing this with a state management as well later on. So today's goal is making a branch with working solutions so we can actually push it for making our users happy, and we can move forward with, again, more features, more UI updates in the following days or weeks. All right, so let's get started. Once we go back, it will ask us to just get the idea of our choice and get the project. What I'm going to do now is I will act like this is not mine, so I will even just git clone the project. I will go to my desktop right now and say git clone and clone the project to my computer. Once it is cloned, I will open my IDE. I will be using IntelliJ IDEA for this, but you can use any IDE that you want. Most of the people loves VS Code, but honestly, for me, it feels more natural, especially coming from Android ecosystem. So I open the project in my IDE, make it full screen. All right, you can see it has the new IDE of the IntelliJ IDEA. I'm doing Flutter pub get right now to pull in the project files. So if it seems like everything is under control, I don't see any problems. I don't see project errors. So far, so good. To be sure that it is working, let's run this project on macOS actually. So I will just run this. It says no connected devices found. All righty. This new thing is kind of interesting. Let me check if I can see a new. Never mind. I will just use the terminal here. I will just say cd amplify grocery list. And what I'm going to do now is I will do Flutter run. And if I do Flutter run, it will say, okay, I will run this with any device that you want. I have macOS for you if you want, or I have the Chrome. I will just say, it says like, please choose one. I will choose one, which is the macOS one. It is going to build the project from scratch for me. And once it is done, it will show me the project, the base project that I have right now. So once we have this, this is also super weird that like the devices are not visible to me over here. But again, like this new UI is kind of crazy. Anyway, maybe I should just revert this new UI beta so I don't need to see it again. All right, so we are back to the previous one. As we can see, the project has some itemizations, all right, some counts here. We can see the previous ones. We can end the shopping. We can add the total amount of the price that we paid, and it will ask for us to upload an invoice. We can add an invoice, and if I go back, you can see that a file has been saved everything is going according to the plan. But this is the base version of whatever I have. So what I need to do is something bigger, something more like important, or what we can use. So if I go back to my ID, I can start off with everything that I have for my project. So, okay, I have my perfect. I have my devices here and so on. So I don't need to worry about the other thing that happened. All right. So I'm closing this. I'm going to go with the macOS because, as I told you, with the new releases that we have, we are supporting macOS and web as well. All right. So back to our blog post. You can see that in the blog post, it explains what you can do with the application with the video that we have here. We will just go away with it. First thing that we are going to do is we will enable the Amplify in our application. How we can do is we need to go to our project folder, the base folder of it, and what we need to write is we will write Amplify in it. This Amplify in it is really important because it is going to tell that, okay, this project from now on is actually an Amplify project. You can name your project anything unique that you decide, or it will give you a unique name for your project as well. Once you do that, it will give you a couple of settings. Most important point here is it will understand your project is a Flutter project because of the file structure that you have. The CLI is smart enough to understand this. You can accept this. It will say which authentication method you want to use from your AWS account. You can say, I want to use this. And lastly, you can pick the default account or any account that you want to use for your AWS account. All right. It gave me an error, but it's okay. We can redo the initialization part. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put AWS profile and pick another account. And now it is creating my application with the profile that I have. Why didn't it work? You might ask earlier. The reason is that that project, or sorry, that profile did not have the recent tokens or like the recent security checks. So that's why it's not going to be used. I will update it later on. I'm going to be using the one account that I have from Frankfurt. So right now it is uploading it. Everything is going perfectly. In the meantime, if you have any questions, again, do not hesitate to ask it in the chat. This conversations, this like literally everything is for you. You might have questions. You might look for like some answers for some dilemmas that you have. So everything that we do here is for you. So just do not hesitate to ask. Also, if you cannot read this, just let me know, because like I try to make it bigger, but if you cannot read it, then just let me know. All right. So this is done. Now we have initialized our Amplify project. This means all the Flutter capabilities that we support right now, meaning that authentication, API, analytics, and storage that we have for developer preview is available for you. So what we're going to do next is we are going to add these features to our project. One thing that we need to do is, like, after we initialized it, we need to push our changes to the backend after we add the authentication. So what we need to do is we will go back, open up our terminal, and say amplify add auth. Amplify add is a special command that helps us to add authentication to our applications. We can use any configuration that we have. We can use a default configuration. We can use social providers. We can add manual configuration as well. I'm going to put default configuration. With the default configuration, you can have the method of username, email, phone number, or like email or phone number, so both. So it is totally up to you. I'm going to pick username because I feel always like username is more like valuable and like really working out fine. And once you're done, you'll say I'm done. Once you say you're done, what you need to do is you need to call amplify push. Amplify push is a command that we use to create our instances on the cloud, create or update our instances in the cloud. Once you do amplify push, it will say, okay, you had an operation of creating an outflow for this application. So do you want to push these? You'll say yes. And once you said yes, it will push everything to the cloud. While it pushes everything to the cloud, let's carry on with the next steps. The next step is actually adding these three libraries: Amplify Flutter, Amplify Auth Cognito, and Amplify Authenticator. So, Amplify Flutter is a library that you use to have core capabilities of Flutter application. And the Amplify Auth Cognito is the library that you can use to have login, logout, sign in operations as well. And lastly, Authenticator is the library for having the authentication flows for UI operations directly coming for you. So you will not create any UI for it. So someone asked, okay, someone asked if we can increase the quality of the content. We can actually, let me check the content quality that we have over the platform that you have. Okay, let me check the StreamYard for it really quickly. Yes, StreamYard has this problem. Okay, I will take care of this really quickly. Thank you very much, Akif, for letting me know. Okay, I think this is from the OBS. So I will just not use this one. I'm still around here. I will just change this camera to use mine. And I will share my screen over StreamYard so you can see it better. I think this looks nicer. I hope this looks nicer. Let me check the stream again. Perfect. This looks nicer, but let me know if it doesn't work. All right. So let's go back to what we have. So what we mentioned was adding these libraries to our project. So I will just go back to IntelliJ IDEA, go to PubSpec YAML, which is the first to-do that I have. If I want to see where the to-dos are, what I can do as well is go to this tiny tab that I have. It will show like many to-dos that I might have as well. Or you can simply write to do to, so you can see whatever we have in the project. All right, so I am adding these libraries here. These libraries are, as mentioned, are essential for having the authentication and amplify behavior. So now I am pulling these libraries. In the meantime, we can check that it is still creating our backend files, backend structure. So everything, when it's done on the cloud side, everything will be perfect. All right, let's go back. What it says is we need to add this code to our main.dart file. Let's add this and examine the code and see what it does for us. So first things first, I will add these imports because these imports are not going to be handled like out of the box. The second thing is we will update functions here. So let me copy these, go back and update my main file. You can see that everything is working fine. This is what I want to achieve with you as well. Like once you have this working for you, you will be like good to go. So what we have here is really important. First thing is we are calling a function called widgets flutter binding ensure initialized. So when you run app, it will do three important calls. One of them is called ensure initialize. The other one is schedule attach root widget. And lastly, it will warm up the first frame. These two are not so essential to bind the logic to your application, but widgets flutter binding is really essential. It actually says that, okay, now you have a widgets binding, now you have a widgets entry point that you can bind your logic into. So you can actually have a reference to whatever you want to achieve in the next calls. So even though this is called later on, sometimes you need to be sure that this operation is handled before running the application. And the reason is that You want to attach a behavior like an authentication flow, like an API flow to your application before even it gets started. And what we do here is we ensure that is initialized before running, then we configure the amplify. What we do with configure amplify is that we define the libraries that we are going to be using and say that, okay, configure this for this application. And once it is successfully configured, we are good to go. Now, let's go back to our code. You can see that what we have here is enough for having the authentication, but we have not written a single line of code for authentication yet. So what we need to do is we need to get this code that is provided to us and go to do 3. And this to do 3 says that update this function. And once I update this, you can see that I added a new thing called authenticator. Authenticator is the library that we provide to you as AWS Amplify to create your authentication flows without writing a single line of code. This will give you sign up, login, forget password, or many more like confirmation screens to be able to just provide your application a nice feeling about your authentication. So once it is done, you can, like, lastly, what you need to do is you need to update your to-do for, and if you run the application from this point, you will be able to have authentication. So in the matter of a couple of minutes, we already added an authentication as well. So let's go to our to-do for. As you can see, I'm just following along like what I have, and I am updating by adding a new icon button here to exit the app and actually sign out. All right, so if our stars are aligned, let's run this application one more time to see if it's working. By the way, if you again any questions, this is a live stream for you. This is a live stream to have direct communication and conversation with you. So just share it with me on the chat and I will help you out with your questions. It's nice to see many folks from different platforms. Some people are here from Twitch, some people are here from YouTube. So it's really nice to have people come, the crowd of people coming and going to talk about AWS Amplify. Anyway, so the application is here. It is running. You can see that it has the credit account, sign in, forget password, many features. So let's create an account. Call this Sally. Say password is 123546778. And the thing that is really important here is that Amplify also puts some important security rules like minimum length of password as well. Like you can also make it even more complicated, but even with the minimal effort, you can have an 8-character password. And lastly, you need to add an email address to have a confirmation. So I say create an account. Once I create an account, I will show you something. You can see that it has sent me a verification code. For this, I didn't do anything. I didn't write any single line of code. It sent me a code of 985 that 761. Okay, if not, I can check the email again. You can see that it had accepted it and now it is there. And you can see I have the sign out button as well. If I want to log in, I will just write the name. And if I sign in, you can see that it is working out of the box. I can also close this one, restart the application, and you can see that the authentication is persisted because this is something that is really important for application as well, right? Like you need to have a persistent authentication flow so you don't need to log in every single time. All right, so now we have authentication that is perfect. Let's carry on with the next part of it. So adding GraphQL API. One thing to mention is AWS Amplify provides 2 ways of having API. One of them is REST API, the other one is GraphQL API. We are recommending to use, like, we are not recommending, but we are actually empowering you to use GraphQL because we believe in the power of it. And once you add it, you can see the impact of it in your application. You can have a declarative way of having your data, and you can get as much information as you can by making connections between data, like one to many, many to many, and many more. So what we have here is we want to give you a chance to use this GraphQL API again on all platforms that are possible. So how you can add it is similar to the one that you had with authentication as well. What you need to do is you need to say Amplify add API. Run this. It will say GraphQL or REST. Just a second. You will pick GraphQL for this. It says, okay, you can have authorization modes, you can have conflict detection. If you use data store, we are not going to talk about data store today, and we are not going to actually use it right now as well. So for the authorization mode, I'm going to use Amazon Cognito user pool. This means that I am going to actually use the signed in user to suggest or to follow up with authorization modes. I'm not going to add anything else. And I will say continue. It says, okay, you can add a schema template to your application. You can have single object, one to many, like having blogs and posts. So you don't even need to create this stuff. It is created for you in case you want to play around with it. And you can have objects with fine-grained access control as well, like a project management app with owner-based authorization. This is a really new one, so I'm going to probably make another video only for this. So let's go ahead and pick the single object with fields template. Once you select this one, it will say, okay, we created some files for you. Everything that you have is there. So let's go back to our blog post. It says, it just shows the same things that we have. The most important point is you need to copy this GraphQL that is provided to you and go back to your Amplify backend and API and go to schema.graphql file and paste everything that you have here. What it does is it is actually creating two items. One of them is grocery, which has many grocery items in it. The other one is grocery item with the name property, the count property, and checking if it's bought or not. So GraphQL defines the type with the type keyword, and you define the name of it. You define if it's a model for us, because when you define it, we will also generate the dot files for you, and you can define the authorization rules. You can say, okay, only the owner, only the creator can see these files, and also only an authenticated user can create these files. All right, so it says, do you want to add the schema now? I will say no. What I'm going to write now is say amplify codegen models. What it's going to do is get these things and generate models for you. You can see that you have groceries, like with all the necessary stuff. You have grocery item here as well with all the necessary stuff as well. So what we need to do is we need to push these changes to the cloud. And while we do these changes, we will also update the previously created grocery items that we have under the models. Let's go back and check it again. These two, we will just get rid of these, so we will not be using them anymore. So I will first say amplify push. Once I say amplify push, you can see that it is checking the local changes first. Once it is seen that what has changed, you can see only the API has been created and there is no change in authentication part. I'm just saying that continue and just push these changes. Once it is pushing these changes, we will go back and see what we have. It says once the deployment is done, you need to add the API library to the pubspec.yaml file. And for doing this, we need to go here and check the addition of GraphQL API. If we go to pub.dev, you can ask for Amplify API. Once you write Amplify API, you can see the library that is created by the team. There's a pre-release version that I mentioned, which is the version that it holds everything from the preview, but also you can have the current stable version, which only supports mobile as well. I'm going to pick this, just copy this, paste it, and do pub-get. Remove this one. Once it is there, I will go back and it says, okay, once you generated everything, you need to update the configure amplify function that you created early on. So I will just copy this one. All right, go back to my main.dart file and actually update this thing with the following. This will add the Amplify API for me. And this will also add the model provider that is created by my CodeGen tool. So I did get dependencies now. If it still continues to ignore, continues to bug you, you can ignore it because we already added it. Anyway, so what we did is we already had Cognito before, like authentication before, but now we actually have Amplify API as well. So it is actually supporting what we have too. So once we have this, the guide says you can remove these two files and just follow the steps to update everything. So first things first, let's go back here. I will just chop these things off, saying okay, and delete. Anyway, it says like, it is used, but I don't care at this point. I have 14 errors. That's fine. I can take care of it. Okay. So what I do is first I will go to add grocery item view. All right. And at that point, first I will update my constructor. The constructor is the one that we use for creating the object, and it will ask me to import the item. And the second thing that we are going to do is we will remove the import, go down, go down, go down. And instead of adding temporary grocery item, what we are going to do is first, we will create a run mutation file. This run mutation function is really important because it will help us to create a different version of the same GraphQL mutation. So I will just copy this function that I have here to create the mutation on the cloud side. Go to the utils. Actually, I'm sorry, helpers. Always follow the guide. Always follow the guide, folks. And just uncomment this, get these Amplify API and Amplify Flutter imports, and that should be ready. Once it is ready, what you need to do is you need to update the to-do 9 in this way. So we need to go to the to-do 9 first. To-do 9. And instead of having all of these stuff like lying around here, we will have the mutation working for us. So I'm just going to copy these stuff, create the items for me, and just ignore the rest. So what we have here is, let me run this stuff. So what we have here is that we created a new grocery item like we have talked about earlier. We created a mutated version that is going to be sent out to the API and say run mutation. So run this mutation, and if there's something wrong, let me know. But if the result is successful, let the widget know that the item is added and go back to the widget. This means that when I show the dialog, just remove the dialog from the screen. All right. So one down, more to go. So next thing that we need to do is we need to go to finalize grocery view at Dart. As you know that we are out of this like temporary stuff. So what we need to do is we will just copy this constructor again, paste it here, import the necessary items for us. And once we imported it, go down and say, okay, we have a new way of adding the previous groceries. So we need to be aware of how we can handle this as well. So what I'm going to do is I am going to add this same mutation approach that we had earlier on and paste this thing over here. And what I did is I'm using the date that is provided to me. I'm using the mutation function that I created, and I'm using the mutations update version of the mutations by finalizing the grocery. What do I mean by finalizing? I will just get this information and put an end date to it and say, okay, this is done. You need to move this to somewhere else. All right. Once I have everything settled, everything is perfect now. What we need to do is we need to go to the previous groceries page. We have 11 errors left, so we are on the road to make everything working for us. So what we need to do is first remove this, then remove this. And what we need to do is, hold on. Yes, it says remove the previous one. That's correct. And every grocery item that we have from now on is actually going to be used for temporary like every temporary grocery item will be grocery item and every temporary previous grocery will be grocery. So let's go and like do this stuff. So first things first, we need to check out this stuff. This is a grocery, all right? And again, this is not a file path. This is actually like file key. And get rid of this again. We are just doing cleanup here right now, okay? We are just doing cleanup to, like make it better for us. You can see that we have a temporary grocery item. We will use this as grocery item as well. This will be grocery item 2. Everything that we do here again is just like cleanup, all right? So I'm going down. It says you can have grocery ID here and so on. We will add these later on. We will get rid of this unused import, and this is also removed as well. Okay, we have a couple of errors left. That is fine. It says now you should have 3 types of errors: grocery ID, current grocery, and previous grocery. Let's check it. Grocery ID, current grocery, and previous groceries. So far, so good. So far, we are on the track and nothing is wasted yet. So what we need to do is we need to go to the previous grocery page. Let's go to the previous groceries page. And once we are there, we need to add a new function. This new function will actually be the function that is going to be fetching all the previous groceries from the cloud. So I'm just pulling these things in. I am saying that, okay, this is also the collection. Okay, what we do here is that check out the groceries according to the date. And once it is there, what you need to do is check out the non-null ones and fetch the previous groceries, okay? So once we have this, what we need to do is we need to update the body property in the scaffold in the same widget with this function. So what we need to do is we need to go here, go to the body here. I will just remove everything in the body and remove this into this, all right? Hold on, it says you need to have the previous list view implementation. So I will have this one here, just get rid of this and say that, okay, I will copy this list view here into here, all right? Okay, now everything seems to be working fine. Everything is going according to the plan again. We have the list view here. We have the call to the list view. So we will have the circle progress indicator by calling it. So we have 4 errors left. That's good news. So it says, okay, now we need to use the grocery ID and current groceries. First, we need to go to the current grocery list page. We already are here. So what we need to do is we need to call the fetch current grocery function. So first, let's call this one. I'm going to add this to the bottom. So what it does is, let's run this. Let's do the imports again, like we usually do. We are pulling in all the functions that we have. We are taking care of the null parts. Everything seems to be fine for the current grocery function. So far, so good. So while we fetch the current grocery, what we need to do is we need to actually update the current function to have the grocery item that is provided to us by the backend. So what we need to do is we need to copy this, go very up, very up, very up, and instead of hold on, instead of returning this, what we need to do is we need to return this. We will say return here. So the previous one is like kind of dead, and I'm going to take this one and add the scaffold here. All right. So this scaffold will be taking care of the UI that we have, but most importantly, now we are able to add the grocery ID by saying grocery.id. Same thing goes to this. There, not there. Are you kidding me? All right. So it is working fine. It is working fine. All right. Okay. We are 40 minutes in. Things are getting a bit slower, but it's all right. So we are good to go with the grocery item, current grocery IDs. Now it's time to do current groceries. Same thing will happen for this one as well. And last but not least, we will copy and paste here. All right, so everything is here. Like we updated everything. And what we did was like really important is like be sure to update add grocery item view and finalize grocery view have these properties for sure, which it has. So everything is fine. So what we need to do is now it's time to add the comments to the previous groceries detail page. So go to this previous grocery details page and add this function here. Okay. So what we did is we will get the previous item that is added. So I'm here. I'm just adding this stuff, importing these important things to my account. And it says, okay, I am right now getting the list of current grocery items, like not just a single one, like apparently. So what we have is we are going to show the detailed page list according to the list that we have. So what we need to do is we need to update the expanded accordingly. So I will just go back, copy this, go to expanded, and see that this expanded needs to be updated. So I'm just updating this, and this dot is out. So you can see that I have a list of groceries that I pull in. I'm just showing them in the list, and you can see each item name and the count of the items that you have bought as well. All right. So far, so good. Everything is going according to the plans. So what we need to do is we need to run our application. So I stopped the previous app so you can see that like we are not changing anything. I'm just rerunning everything. By the way, If you have any questions in the meantime, do not hesitate to ask. Like what we do is we are planning to create a working version of the previously shared AWS application that we created on. In the following streams, what we are going to do is we will create a proper architecture for this. And more importantly, we will actually create a better UI and more features for this. All right, so it is Sally, as you might remember. I'm just creating this. Okay, it is fetching the items first, so nothing has changed. I will just say Apple, and I will just say 4. You can see that it has added this. I am removing this. I am closing the app. I am restarting it to show you that everything is working as expected in not just like locally, but also globally. Hold on. Actually, let me run this on web so you can see that it is working in different platforms as well, not only just macOS. Now we are running. This is so exciting right now because being real cross-platform is like Flutter's main goal, right? Like we need to have that working like this. So I am running the same app. I didn't do sign in, like create account here. What I do is I created this, and you can see I have the Apple here as well. All right. So I just log out from here. I will continue from macOS from now on. Okay. So what we need to do next and also last is actually we are going to add the storage, the capability to read and upload files to the S3 buckets. So for doing that, what we need to do is we will go to our terminal again. Let's clean this up and say amplify add storage. You can see that it asks, hey, do you want to add content or do you want to add NoSQL database? I will say I will add content because I think that's more important. It says, please provide a friendly name for your resources that be used. I can add resources for myself, or I can actually add the name that they have created for us. I will just use it. I will just use the bucket name that they created for us. Who should have access? I will say only authenticated users. The authenticated users can create, read, and delete. And it says, hey, do you want to add Lambda triggers? I don't see any need to do so, so I will just let it be. All right. While I am pushing these changes to the cloud, like I did with other categories, I will also add the code that I have for storage. So now I have everything here. You can see that you only added storage. The rest did not change. I will just say yes. While it does that, let's go back to our code. It says, okay, you need to add this file, add this library. Let's go back to the pub/spec YAML, add this library again, say pub.get, which is like, it is going to download the library for me. This is going to add the storage, so I can remove this one. And what we need to do is we need to update the amplify configure function that we have again. Why is it important? Because each time that we have a new library, our function needs to know that it's new and it needs to be configured when we rerun the application again. So Amplify Storage S3, which is the storage library that we have, is added to our application now. So next thing that we need to do is we will do the upload operations. So first things first, I will just go to to-do 11. Hold on, let me make it easy for my application to be read. Okay, because this is the perfect. Okay, what we need to do is we will get rid of this and we will paste this one here. So I'm copying this and pasting this here. What it does is it gets the file that I picked from the file picker and it uploads it. And while it uploads, you can also see the fraction. So the percentage of that is uploaded on the like logging mechanism that you have. Like quite cool, right? And lastly, upload the grocery list item so it has the proper file key that you have. So I just uploaded this according to the file that it has. So why do I use the key as the grocery ID? The reason is that we need to have something unique to be identified with the current grocery item. And that is why I use the grocery ID that I created, which is a UUID that has a reference to both grocery ID and the file itself. All right. Now everything is when now that everything is done, what we need is we need to show the file that we have uploaded in the file that shows the details of the previous groceries. So what we need to do is first add this nice function to the previous grocery details file. What it does is it just gets the file according to the access level and everything that you have. And last but not least, what we need to do is you need to update the to-do 12 to have the download URL for the grocery ID. So what I need to do is go to to-do 12 and yeah, I just added a future builder to be able to show the file that I have here. All right, so everything seems to be fine so far. So what we need to do is we need to run the application now. First, let's check everything is done. Perfect. So let's run this again on, first, let's run this on macOS. I'm really excited for it because in the span of like 45 minutes, we were able to actually redo everything. So I'm just going to push whatever we have here to GitHub to answer the person and actually give them the reference to this video so they can follow along. All right, so I have this user that I already created, right? So I created this user, it is getting everything. I have like needs that I need to have. I will just say like pair 5. Oh, did I write it right? Like, is it pair? Pair. Yeah, perfect. So what I need to do is let's end the shopping. I will just say fruits and I will say it costed 90 euros. And when I say finalize grocery, it will let me upload an image. And you can see that I made up an item. And actually it says 80. So let's be consistent. Okay. I will just upload this, choose this, and it will upload everything like you can see here. And once it is uploaded, I can go and see the previously uploaded item here. So what we have done is we have added and created actually a new grocery list by using the steps that is provided to us by the blog post that is created. So what you need to do is you just need to follow along what we have or go to this file, just download or fork it or just clone the project and just follow it along. Let me know what you think. Let me know if it misses a step. Follow along with the video. Maybe I missed the point or not. But the most important point is you need to actually just follow the steps that is provided to you to have the best experience for this blog post or for these categories. So you can see that now that we have everything that is aligned. The back button doesn't work, but it's not about us. So I'm just going to restart it. So you can see that I can add new like TV one basket here. All right. Say and shopping miscellaneous and say 85. I can say finalize grocery. I can put the Amplify logo, which is really cool. I can go back again, click on this, and you can see that I have the item here. Okay. All right. So sometimes we can have this like weird errors. It says, Okay, this is just render object thing. I can clean this up, but overall, you can see that everything is working fine with upload and any other mechanism. So in this video, you have seen how you can create a authentication API and storage capability for a simple grocery list. In the follow-up live streams, what we are planning to do again, we will add new features, we will add state management, and most importantly, we will have a nicer UI. So thanks for sticking up. It's just, again, start of the 17 days of Flutter. I'm going to do my best to give you the best Flutter content that I can give during this time period. Let me know if you have any questions or share something. And I'm really happy that you shared this live stream with me. So thank you and bye-bye.